Hello, all. Welcome to the glass floor. Usually, I start this with a little bit of a joke or maybe some questions. For this one, I think you should just listen and maybe think a little bit about what is a normal response to things, what's not a normal response, and maybe how should responses change. This is The Glass Floor, which is a show about gender equality and sort of figuring out where we can meet in the middle between men, women, their different issues. This is a show that's founded by NCFM, the National Coalition for Men, which was founded in 1977, and they're dedicated to fighting off discrimination against men, boys, and the families that love them. And so today's episode, we're actually going to have the wonderful time of talking with Andreas here.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Katrina.
So we're all familiar with sort of male power, female victimization side of things. That's very commonly expressed in the media. Today we're going to take a look at an alternate reality on this, something unexpected, something that demonstrates a little something of the other half of gender reality. So to that end, we have Andreas here. He's going to tell us a story of something that happened to him. How many years ago was it?
Oh, this is about 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago in a North Shore suburb. Should I just jump right in?
Sure.
Okay, so I was frustrated trying to do a little repair in the kitchen or something, and I went down to my shop to get a tool, and all the screwdrivers were gone. So I say to my then wife, former wife, hey, where's the screwdrivers? Did the kids do a project or something? No, they're in the junk drawer in the kitchen. Well, why are they in the junk? Okay, go up to the kitchen, and I go to the junk drawer, and it can't even open because she loved little candles, and she would buy 50, 100 tea light candles and shove them in and light candles every day, which was another issue between us. Every day she'd light 6, 8 candles in the house, and I would have to blow them out so the house wouldn't burn down. So I'm like, oh God, And then I said, why didn't you put the screwdrivers away? How many are in here? I don't know. I was doing something in the kitchen, and so I kept getting screwdrivers. Okay, so I pull the drawer out, I dump it on the counter, and find the screwdriver, go to work on the little project, and she comes in and goes ballistic. What the hell are you doing? Why did you do this? And she's just triggered in a huge way and yelling at me. Now, obviously, there must have been something that caused this trigger beyond the dumping of the drawer to get the screwdriver, because I had to do the repairs she just asked me to do. And so, a little backstory is she is a black belt in mixed martial arts at the Dagerberg Academy. So she knows how to lay somebody down. She's an empowered woman. She's strong. She loves to believe in her female power, and she has the power as a black belt in a mixed martial art.
Indeed.
And I'm a triathlete at that time, so, whatever. She gets so upset, enraged, that she calls the local police. Now, this is it's North Shore Suburban Police Department, and they don't have a lot to do, right? So they send, bam, squad comes over.
Barney over.
Another squad comes over. The driveway fills up with squad cars. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
She called the police on herself.
Yeah. So what did she say when she called the police?
I don't know what the whole conversation was, but she gets, and I hear her calling the police, and she says, the part I did hear was, I'm afraid of what I'm going to do.
Right.
I have fear around my response to whatever. And she's walking around just in fury, telling the police people that she wants the police to come because she's afraid of what she's going to do.
Right. So the point is, the police were already tipped off to what was actually going on.
Right. Mm-hmm. They had the story. And
but even so,
it was her trigger and her wanting them to come. And she, another backstory, is a LCSW. She's a clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. So she knows what can happen in domestic situations. She
Mm.
knows, violence and all that stuff. And she's calling the police on herself. So I'm amazed by this whole thing. This is a delightful turn of events because I'm thinking, what is going to happen here? What I never heard or saw anybody call the police on themselves.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen? So I'm like, okay, let's see how this plays out.
Right.
So we had a big house, a big front entrance, and a living room here, a living room on the other side, and then my big office. So the police come to the door, boom, 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 boom. And she says, I'll get it. Thankfully, she did. She opens the door. 2 big policemen are there.
Right.
And the first thing they say is they point at me in the
Yeah.
background, 2
The
rooms
nearest male.
away.
Yeah.
Is that the guy?
Yeah.
And then they unclick the strap on their weapons. Like
Ooh.
they're going to hold, like, we're
Yeah.
ready to do damage here, And I go, whoa, 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 what's going on? And they said, we got a call about domestic violence. And, as you're the, and then she says, I called you guys. Yeah, we know. And they're putting their hands on their gun. Can we come in? And, is that the guy? And they come in the house.
Right.
And I'm saying, hey, calm down. She called you
Yeah.
on herself. She wanted you to come because I don't know why, but
Right.
you're responding to her call about her anger.
But the police arrive with an assumption,
Right.
Yeah.
and that assumption is
Big bad male in the room doing damage to the house, the woman, the kids, whatever. There's all sorts of stories I'm sure going on,
right.
which are all untrue. I emptied a drawer full of candles that I couldn't open up, and now I got policemen with their hands on their guns, and more coming. There's another car with 2 more police, backing up. The door is open.
Yeah.
2 are inside. 2 are on the porch, and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? And then the 2 that are in the house look at each other like, we don't know what to do with this. And then the 2 coming in.
Baffled boys in blue.
The baffled boys in blue. So 2 people are in, and the other 2 cops are at the door, and the 2 that are in said, I think we got this, you guys can you guys can go. And they, well, what's going on? And they're also looking at me. The next 2 are like, how big a threat is this guy? You sure? You sure that you got it? And they said, yeah. She called us about herself, and they all are looking at each other. They said, just you can leave. So they come in and sit down, and I stay in my office, and then she sits in front of these 2 coppers, and they ask what's going on. Well, he took out the drawer, and it upset me, and I didn't know what kind of violent response I would have to that. And they're like, why? This is not our typical call. You sure that's what happened? Is there anything? You got kids in the house?
Yeah.
Is there any
Is he
other
threatening
thing?
you? Or
Did he
something?
tell you
Right.
to say that? And I'm just watching this whole scene play out where she's explaining to them her ability to handle it. She's an empowered woman and she can do this, but she also knows that it could have gotten out of hand because of what she did. And I'm like smirking.
Yeah.
The cops see me in the background, and I'm just like watching this whole thing. I said, okay. And then one cop says to the other one, should we just leave? Are you okay, ma'am? Is there any violence? Did he hit you? Did you hit him? No, but I was right on the verge. Okay. Do you need counseling or something? Do you want to come with us and remove yourself from the situation? And no, I think I'm calmed down now. And then now after this is a number of minutes, 50, I don't know how many minutes the police have been in interviewing her, other cops have come and gone. Then they turn their focus to me and say, sir, what's your name? I'm Andreas. This is my house.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need from us? After this whole thing.
Oh, that's good. They asked that.
Yeah, and they said, would you like to press charges on her for being violent and needing to call us? Did she hurt you? Now they're questioning, after all of this, what she did to me. And I said, no, but, there have been things in the past where we practiced mixed martial arts and she's pretty good at it. But I don't think there was malice in those occasions, nor this one. So I think we can let it go. Well, we can cite her right now. And then I thought, she's a professional, and her license could be
Yeah.
at risk if I press charges on
Yeah.
this call that she made. So I said, no, let's just let it go, And in retrospect, when the divorce came later, years later, I thought,
Oh,
wow,
maybe I should
I
have.
could have had something to present to court. Here she's violent, because when I went in front of the judge and said, no, it's just,
But
she's,
you were concerned with her
I
reputation. You weren't
was,
going to do
right, I
that.
wasn't going to do that to her. So,
Right.
um,
So maybe I could do like a sort of gender political summing up of what this looks like from a gender political perspective. So the thing is, the police are trained in something called the Duluth model of domestic violence. It is, to say the least, one-sided, very, very biased, where the male is the perpetrator and the female is the victim. They've also been trained in primary aggressor laws, and just being larger makes you the suspect there. That's the bias there,
yeah.
you see.
But there's one little bit of the story that I left out, is that when I told the police, I said, she called you guys, and I overheard her say it was her behavior that
Right.
it was the call. Didn't you get that from your dispatcher or whatever? And they said, yeah, they told us that, and we didn't
We
believe
didn't
it.
believe it. Yeah. See, that's the depth of the bias here.
Oh boy.
So we're not saying that this is gender reality in its entirety, but we're looking at this as what we'll call the other half of gender reality, where males suffer this sort of prejudice. And those boys in blue were like a gang of thugs at the command of the female that calls. And even when they had a heads up, they still operate out of the assumption that the male is the perpetrator and the female is the victim.
Right. And I grew up with police, and I wasn't that afraid, but it did dawn on me later that two guys taking the strap off their gun and putting their hands on the gun, had she not admitted
That's right.
that it was her, this thing could have gotten way out of control and been a much worse scenario.
If she had just pointed at you
and said, he's the guy, he did it, they would have
over.
just busted in and put me in handcuffs. So
That's right.
In my own house, after having done a very small domestic thing. So it was bizarre, and the levels of how bizarre it is keep, appearing in my mind after I tell the story. It's like, this is really an unusual thing, that level of her admitting what she did and taking responsibility for her
That's right.
Potential domestic violence.
Yeah.
What if it had been actual domestic violence and she wanted to cover it up and just said it was him?
That's right.
They would have assumed it was me, and
So her owning it is what was so unusual in this situation.
One of the
because the bias that you experienced is experienced by all men, basically, in a domestic violence situation.
Yeah. So I was just lucky that I had a cool head, and they cooled down, and it resolved.
I'm curious. So she called them on herself.
Yeah.
Obviously, they came in with the bias, which is, no offense, very typical of the police. Yeah. However, you sort of want to know what charges they would have pressed in the first place, but I guess that's a different question for the law, because technically no domestic violence is committed. But if she...
Well, remember that up to that point, they had only heard her side of the story.
Yeah.
And she had already told them she was a black belt in mixed martial arts, and she already told them that she feared her violence and her future violence. So she could have been, maybe they made the assumption that she was fibbing and she actually had acted out and now was covering it up. So that's what they were saying. After 15 minutes of talking to her, then they turned to me and asked me how I am, right? So it
But
took,
all she would have had to say is, "I'm afraid of him."
right.
Yeah.
That would.
Or
That's
fibbed and said he threw the candles at me
Yeah,
or whatever.
whatever.
That
Did
sounds
she ever explain why she called the police on herself, or it was just she chose to?
She was in a rage that the backstory about these candles had been an issue in our relationship, that she kept buying these bags on sale of candles and then stuffing them everywhere and lighting them, and I had to go around at night to make the house safe from fire. And we had little kids
All
running
right.
around too, so it was an issue that had a backstory. So me dumping the
Okay.
drawer triggered her. I just wanted a screwdriver. That's
I
I was
see.
trying
All
to
right.
get.
Well, to that, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for being here, Andreas.
My
Yeah, thank you
pleasure.
for telling us that story.
Yeah.
If I can make one quick comment, and this is just the thought process, is they are trained on the Duluth model, but I've sort of come to the thought process that not only does the Duluth model not bring in the situation where the man's the victim, um, it also doesn't bring in. They asked her if she wanted counseling, but they didn't really push it much further than that. And then, had it been her saying she's worried about hurting the kids, would they have taken the kid's side or would they have taken her side? And
Oh,
and do they train past a domestic situation between adult woman and adult man? So
Well, I don't think they wanted to do the paperwork. As I said, I grew up with cops, and a lot of times it's like, okay, this is calm down.
yeah,
Let's just roll to the next thing. They don't want to have to deal with.
at the writing the
This was
report, yeah,
nighttime. The kids
no.
were in bed. They take her back to the station. This would have been a lot of work for them. So hey, we can just say this is over, and
I suppose it would have been up to DCFS to make the call with the kids.
yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
know.
But that went through my mind, is how out of control this could have got in terms of
No.
its effect on her.
Well, the risk you
Mhm.
were under, yeah, and
yeah,
how vulnerable you were to anything she might say or do.
Right. But I was kind to say to not. What if I had made up a story
Well,
that
you
said
were
I was being considerate of her law,
you
her
were
degree.
also
She had
being
her
chivalrous.
license. Yeah,
yeah.
I was white knighting in this crazy mixed
Yeah.
up situation. So it was bizarre on a number of levels.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on this episode, Andreas, and
Thank you,
sharing your
Katrina.
story.
Thank
And
you, Tim.
yeah, hopefully Tim
And I
will.
hope it all balances out. That's my hope. I'm still looking at this, but I've
That's
got
our
some.
basic supposition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is one example of the other side of the
Yeah, the other
balance.
half of what happens.
I don't know where it goes on the balance, but this was an odd one. But with that, Tim, I guess we're going to maybe talk to him in the next episode or see about discussing this kind of situation further because this has been very interesting.
Indeed.
So with that, we will see you all next episode. Thank you for watching. This has been the
Yeah.
Glass Floor Podcast.
Don't forget to press that like and subscribe
And make sure to comment.
and comment.
See you guys.